Okay, we're going to start by talking about perfect square trinomials. So I'm going to do the first one, and then I'm going to have you practice the rest. So we're going to go ahead and factor these. So to get a perfect square trinomial, that's basically just saying that you're having the same binomial twice as your factored form, and when you go ahead and solve, you end up with this. So I'm looking for the numbers that will multiply together to get 16, but add together to get 8, and I know that's 4 and 4. So it's x plus 4 times x plus 4. But the way we want to write it is x plus 4 squared. Okay, so we want to get in the habit of doing that, especially for these perfect square trinomials, because that's how we're going to solve when we're trying to go ahead and find the solutions. So our steps that we're going to follow is we're going to go ahead and factor the perfect square trinomial first, and then we're going to solve the equation by square roots. So remember that a positive number always has 2 square roots, so you have to solve both cases. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and solve this. So what I need to do is I need to go ahead and solve this part. And figure out what numbers multiply together to get this, and add together to get that. And I know that is 2. So my perfect square trinomial is x plus 2 squared equals 25. Okay, so that was step 1, was to factor. Step 2 is to go ahead and do the square root of both sides. So when I'm doing the square root of x plus 2 squared, I'm going to end up with just x plus 2 on this side. Okay, and then I'm going to have a positive and a negative 5 over here. So I need to go ahead and solve this for x. So I'm going to subtract 2. And then to get my solutions, I need to go ahead and solve this part. So I'm going to do negative 2 plus 5 and negative 2 minus 5. And when I do negative 2 plus 5, I'm going to get 3. And when I get negative 2 minus 5, I get negative 7. So my solutions are negative 7, comma 3. Okay, so same idea over here. We need to figure out the perfect square trinomial. That this is going to be the binomial that's going to become. The binomial is going to be a negative 6 here because 6 times 6, negative 6 times negative 6 is 36. And negative 6 plus negative 6 is negative 12. So I'm going to have x minus 6 squared equals 81. And then I'm going to do step 2 is the square root of both sides. So then I'm left with x minus 6 equals positive and negative 9. Okay, and then I can go ahead and solve this. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. 6 plus or minus 9. And then I'm going to solve both of them. I'm going to do 6 plus 9, 6 minus 9, and I'll end up with negative 3 and 15. Okay, so you're doing 6 minus 9 to get this, and 6 plus 9 to get that. All right, for number 3, again, I have 49 and a negative 14 here, so I know I'm going to use a negative 7. So I have x minus 7 squared equals 4. Step 2 is to do the square root. Okay, so I have x minus 7 equals positive and negative 2. Add 7 to both sides. So I have 7 plus or minus 2. And my solution is 7 minus 2 is 5. 7 plus 2 is 9. All right, one more. So we have 9 and 6. I know 3 times 3 is 9. And 3 plus 3 is 6. So we're going to use 3. So I have x plus 3 squared equals 1. Step 2 is to do the square root. Okay, so I have x plus 3 equals positive or negative 1. Subtract 3 from both sides. And then my solutions, I'm going to do negative 3 minus 1 to get a negative 4, and a negative 3 plus 1 to get a negative 2. All right, so we also have a completing the square. That's really what the main type are going to be. You might see some that are just like the perfect squares, but a lot of times we're going to have completing the square. So when you don't have a perfect square trinomial, like we did in these examples, we can create one. So this process is called completing the square. We're going to follow the steps 1 through 4 in order to simplify this expression. So we'll use this equation. Step 1 is to write it as x squared plus bx equals c. So we're going to subtract our number and move it to the other side. So I'm going to have x squared plus 8x equals negative 7. All right, so step 2 is then take half of b, square it, and then add that to both sides. Because we're trying to create the perfect square for our left side. Okay, so I'm going to take half of 8, which is 4, and I'm going to square it to make it 16. Okay, so then I'm going to add 16 to both sides. So x squared plus 8x plus 16, so that's our perfect square trinomial on this side. And then I'm doing negative 7 plus 16. And negative 7 plus 16 is going to get me to 9. And then when I factor this side, the numbers that multiply together to get this and add together to get that are going to be a positive 4. So I have x plus 4 squared. Now I've created my own perfect square trinomial. So now I can go ahead and keep solving. So that step 3 was to factor the perfect square trinomial. And then step 4 is to take the square root of both sides and then solve. Okay, so we're just doing this beginning stuff. Step 2 is really the new thing. 3 and 4 are what we did in the examples above. So we're going to do the square root of both sides. So I have x plus 4 equals positive or negative 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. And then I can solve. Negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. Okay, so that's how you solve by completing the square. So you're rewriting as x squared plus bx equals c, so move the c to the other side. Half of b, square it, add that to both sides, and then continue from there. So there are 4 on the back that I want you to try, but I'm going to go ahead and hop down to the irrational solution section to show you what your answer should look like if it's an irrational solution. So we're going to go ahead and try number 9 together. So step 1 is to make sure I'm moving my c to the other side. So I'm going to have x squared minus 2x equals 4, because I'm adding 4 to both sides. Okay, so now step 2 is to take my b term right here. Okay, so I'm taking my b, which is half of that, so negative 1, and then I'm squaring half of that, which ends up being 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and add 1 to both sides. Okay, so now I'm going to have x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 4 plus 1, which is 5. Okay, so then I'm going to have 5 on this side, and then I can go ahead and factor this, and I know that my trinomial, or my binomial, sorry, that I want to use is x plus 1, or x minus 1, because it's a negative 2. It's a minus 1. Because it's negative 2 here, so we want minus 1. Okay, so I've got minus 1, and now I can go ahead and solve from here. I'm going to do the square root of both sides. Okay, and I've got x minus 1 equals, I can't simplify this, so I'm going to leave it as a square root of 5. Okay, and then it's the positive and negative square root of 5 also. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my 1, so x is equal to 1 plus or minus the square root of 5. And this is just how you would leave your answer, just like that.